Captain Slade Cutter was the submarine USS Seahorse's last chance. 72 hours into a chase across the Pacific, his boat is falling apart. Radar dead, engines overheating, the crew half-delirious. Cutter hasn't slept, obsessively tracking a Japanese convoy by ear alone. Only months earlier, Seahorse had been a disaster. 55 days at sea, without a single confirmed sinking. Her first captain was cautious to a fault, and the crew came home humiliated. Now it's Cutter's turn. A former All-American football star, built like a lineman and wired for aggression, he believed hesitation killed more sailors than the enemy ever did. But there's a fine line between courage and madness. As Japanese escort frigates sweep their sonar through the dark around her hull, Cutter drives Seahorse toward her breaking point. He has identified a 30-second gap, one window that could make him a legend, or sink them all. Commander Donald McGregor had impressed everyone at Mare Island with his high standards and meticulous drills. Time and again, he'd run USS Seahorse's crew through endless practice attacks, demanding perfection against training targets in California waters. But now, aboard Seahorse in the waters off Palau in September 1943, everything was different. Since leaving port on August 28th, McGregor had broken off attack after attack. A convoy at Malakal Harbor was abandoned when destroyers pinged. Then a steamer was spotted leaving Tuagel Malungi Passage, but he fled at first sight of patrol boats. The man who drilled perfect approaches now froze whenever Japanese sonar swept across his hull. On September 6th, 2 transports approached at 7 knots, too slow for even McGregor to avoid. Seahorse fired 4 torpedoes at a 7,500-ton troop transport. 3 explosions. He saw smoke and flames through the periscope. Then Seahorse was attacked with 35 depth charges over 6 hours. The number 4 torpedo tube was destroyed. When Seahorse surfaced after dark, they found no debris, no oil slick. The transport had survived. But no one aboard Seahorse was angrier about the broken-off attacks than her executive officer, Slade Cutter. Years earlier, he'd earned quite a reputation as an all-American tackle at the Naval Academy, using his 6'2" frame to bulldoze through defensive lines, helping secure the Navy's first football win against Army in years. After graduation, he chose submarines over the surface fleet, as he was drawn to independence and aggressive tactics. Cutter's first combat experience was on board USS Pompano, where he learned the Japanese escorts weren't the invincible submarine hunters the training manuals claimed. For nearly a year, he watched torpedoes slam into enemy hulls, while sonar pinged all around, diligently taking notes. Now, aboard Seahorse, he watched his captain retreat every time an escort appeared on the horizon. On September 10th, Seahorse tracked 5 ships, leaving the Tuagel Malungi Passage. The convoy zigzagged lazily, guards down, perfect for a night surface attack. But McGregor never closed within 13,000 yards. Too many escorts, he said, making an impenetrable screen. When Cutter suggested they could outmaneuver the escorts on the surface after dark, tactics that had worked on Pompano, McGregor's raging response was heard by the crew all through the boat. Their executive officer was reckless, crazy even, for suggesting such aggression. With this, the second-in-command had no choice but to bite his tongue and keep working. September 14th gave the men a chance at redemption when a large tanker appeared off Tuagel Malungi, moving slowly, seemingly alone. McGregor actually attacked this time, firing 4 stern torpedoes, then swinging to fire 4 from the bow. 8 torpedoes streaking toward the target. The crew held their breath, counting down the seconds to impact. But nothing happened. Not a single explosion against the tanker's hull. The ever-daring Cutter argued they should close range, investigate whether the torpedoes had run deep, exploded prematurely, or simply missed. American torpedo failures were a known problem throughout the fleet. They needed to learn what went wrong. But McGregor refused to move closer. Upon pressing further, the skipper ordered his second-in-command to be confined to quarters for the remainder of the patrol. The officer walked forward, his face burning and beet red, while the control room crew watched in stunned silence. And for the next 2 weeks, Seahorse operated without her executive officer. On September 27th, Seahorse arrived at Midway with nothing confirmed sunk. McGregor's patrol report claimed 3 hits on a transport and aggressive action against multiple convoys, but no real hits. When Seahorse's patrol report reached Pearl Harbor, it landed on the desk of Rear Admiral Charles Lockwood, commander of the Pacific Fleet's submarine force. The numbers told one story: 55 days at sea, 0 confirmed sinkings, and at the height of the Pacific War, no less. Without requesting additional details or conducting a formal investigation, Lockheed made his decision. Commander Donald McGregor was detached from Seahorse and assigned to shore duty. They did not have to look far for a replacement. Rear Admiral Charles Lockwood had taught seamanship at the Naval Academy years earlier. One of his students had been a football player named Slade Cutter. Now, reading between the lines of McGregor's defensive patrol report, Lockwood suspected he knew exactly what had gone wrong aboard Seahorse. Captain John Babe Brown confirmed it. Brown met and managed Cutter during his academy football days, watching the tall trainee bulldoze through defensive lines with the same aggression he'd later bring to submarine warfare. They both knew Cutter's reputation from Pompano, attacking through escort screens, pressing home shots when other officers would retreat. They also knew McGregor, his pre-war caution, his by-the-book approach. Lockwood made his decision. Slade Cutter would take command of Seahorse. But when Cutter took command of Seahorse at Midway in October 1943, he faced a hostile crew. McGregor's constant public criticisms had poisoned them against their new captain. Chief Quartermaster Joseph McGreevy approached Cutter with bad news, quote, "There's some of our people don't want to go to sea with you. They think you're a madman." Cutter told McGreevy to take only volunteers on the next patrol. The next morning, McGreevy assembled the crew on deck, quote, "If you don't want to go to sea with Slade, take one step forward. And when you take that step, know that you will be going elsewhere." Only a single sailor stepped forward. The rest stayed put. However, the skipper knew he needed more than reluctant acceptance. So when Admiral Lockwood visited Midway, he made a request. Ralph Pleakman, another Pompano veteran, Pleakman could input target data and produce firing solutions faster than anyone in the submarine force. He also recognized Chief McGreevy's exceptional night vision and put him in charge of the periscope, stating, quote, "I couldn't see anything, but he could see those black hulks through the periscope. He was invaluable and absolutely fearless." Finally, on October 20th, 1943, USS Seahorse departed Midway for her second war patrol. The same submarine that had failed to sink a single ship now carried a transformed crew and a commander who believed in one principle: attack. Always attack. The difference was immediate. When McGregor had kept the submarine submerged during daylight, avoiding contact, the skipper ran on the surface whenever possible, covering more ocean, hunting for targets. Only 9 days into the patrol, Seahorse spotted a Japanese trawler south of Aogashima. These armed picket boats served as early warning for the Japanese Navy. Cutter ordered a battle service. Seahorse burst through the waves, deck gun crew scrambling into position. The 4-inch gun opened fire at 2,400 yards. The gun crew was rusty, the target zigzagging frantically. Nonetheless, Cutter kept them firing relentlessly until the trawler's superstructure disintegrated, flames spreading from bow to stern. When she finally slipped under, 9 Japanese sailors floated in the wreckage. The next day, October 30th, Cutter spotted another trawler. After disabling it with machine gun fire, he sent a boarding party across. The sailors grabbed navigation charts, code books, and fresh fish from the galley before leaving the trawler to sink. October 31st brought a third trawler, and this time, Seahorse's gun crew needed only minutes to blow the bridge completely off the vessel. 3 trawlers in 3 days. Now there was no doubt Cutter was teaching his crew how submariners should fight. On November 1st, Seahorse picked up a massive convoy south of Kyushu, 17 ships in columns, multiple escorts weaving between them. Cutter tracked them through the night, positioning for a dawn attack. But at 10 p.m., orange flashes lit up the convoy's rear, while distant depth charges rumbled across the water. Another American submarine was attacking. The convoy scattered, escorts racing toward the explosions. Here, the skipper saw his opening. While the Japanese focused on the other submarine, Seahorse slipped through the chaos. At 12:48 a.m. on November 2nd, he fired 3 bow torpedoes at what looked like a 10,000-ton passenger cargo ship from 3,700 yards. The torpedoes ran hot, straight, and normal. 3 explosions ripped through the target. The stern broke off and sank immediately, while the bow rose high before plunging under. The skipper swung Seahorse around, lining up 2 more targets. At 4:18 a.m., he fired 3 torpedoes each at a tanker and freighter from 2,200 and 1,700 yards. Both ships erupted in flames. The tanker's aft section exploded with such violence that debris rained down across the water. Within minutes, both ships were gone. Chihaya Maru and Ume Maru were added to Seahorse's tally. After months of frustration under McGregor, the crew had just witnessed their submarine tear through a convoy, sinking 3 ships in a single night. Cutter had delivered on his promise of aggressive action. Slade Cutter was no longer a madman, but a team leader. November 22nd found Seahorse and her men stalking another convoy in the East China Sea. 3 escorts blocked the approach, echo ranging constantly. The old Seahorse would have withdrawn. Cutter's Seahorse went to radar depth, slipping beneath the escort's sonar beams while using her radar to maintain contact. Cutter fired 4 torpedoes from 1,500 yards, 2 hits that blew the 3,099-ton Daishu Maru apart amidships, sending her straight to the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. Only 4 days later, Seahorse intercepted another convoy, racing to the safety of the mine Tsushima Strait. Cutter had to attack before they reached protected waters. The angle was poor, the range long, but time was running out. He fired 3 torpedoes at the leading tanker from 3,900 yards. 2 hits. The tanker's midsection exploded, stern section drifting free, bow sinking immediately. Cutter immediately fired 4 stern tubes at a second tanker from 3,300 yards. For 10 seconds, there was nothing. Then the night turned to day. The San Ramon Maru didn't just explode. A mushroom cloud of burning fuel rose 3,000 feet into the air, pieces of the tanker raining down across the ocean. The blast was so massive that an escort near the tanker stopped dead in the water, possibly damaged by flying debris. By November 30th, Seahorse was down to her last torpedoes. Cutter had been tracking a convoy for hours, waiting for the perfect shot. But when he finally fired his remaining stern tubes just after midnight on December 1st, one exploded seconds after leaving the tube. The premature detonation gave away Seahorse's position. The convoy opened fire, shells and depth charges churning the water, while the leader took Seahorse deep and cleared the area. When Seahorse arrived at Pearl Harbor on December 12, 1943, her second patrol results spoke for themselves. 4 large cargo ships and 3 trawlers sunk in 53 days. The submarine that had failed to sink anything on her first patrol had just completed one of the most successful patrols of the year. A proud and beaming Admiral Lockwood met Seahorse on the dock. The gamble of replacing McGregor with Cutter had paid off spectacularly. The crew that had reluctantly accepted their madman captain now swaggered off their boat with the confidence of proven submariners. Chief McGreevy, who had warned the skipper that the crew thought he was crazy, now spoke of his captain with obvious pride. Throughout the patrol, Pleatman had fired up the crew with his favorite battle cry. When Cutter suggested cleaner language for official settings, the phrase caught fire on the boat. When Seahorse pulled into Pearl Harbor, she was flying a hand-sewn pennant from her periscope shears with FUKE''EM painted in bold letters, the crew's new battle flag for everyone to see. But Cutter was just getting started. The second patrol had been about proving what Seahorse could do. The third patrol would become legendary. As the men of USS Seahorse welcomed the new year of 1944, they'd become a well-oiled machine. At a refit at Pearl Harbor, Cutter had drilled them with the same intensity he'd once brought to coaching football. Every man knew his job, trusted his teammates, and believed in aggressive tactics. As he would later explain, quote, "I trained my Seahorse crew the same way I did my Battleship Idaho football team years before. On each training period, we would start with the individual and the fundamentals, then on to department training, then molding all departments into a team for surface gunfire and another team for battle stations, torpedo. The important thing was to develop in each man self-confidence and confidence in his team." Only 10 days into the patrol, Seahorse intercepted a convoy east of the Marianas. The approach started badly. Escorts picked up the submarine without warning, dropping 6 depth charges that rattled every rivet in the hull. The old McGregor would have run. Cutter refused to break off. He surfaced after dark and raced ahead of the convoy, diving at dawn to wait in ambush. When the 6,500-ton transport came into range at 2,500 yards, Seahorse fired 4 torpedoes. 3 struck home, breaking the Nico Maru's spine, making her fold in half, while her escorts dropped charges at nothing as the American submarine ran away at full speed. On January 21st, Seahorse found 2 heavily loaded transports heading from Palau to Wewak. The ships wallowed low in the water, cargo stacked so high on their decks it looked ready to topple. Cutter tracked them through the afternoon, watching them zigzag while 3 escorts weaved around them. After dark, he surfaced for a radar approach. The first attack run went sour when the lead transport zigged away at 2,900 yards. Cutter spun Seahorse around and fired 3 torpedoes at the larger transport. 2 hits stopped the Ikoma Maru cold. Only 20 seconds later, a torpedo meant for the first target slammed into the stern of the second transport, the Yasukuni Maru. Both ships began settling while their escorts dropped depth charges blindly. Without thinking twice, Cutter moved in to finish them, firing 2 more torpedoes at the larger ship. Both missed. After trying and failing again with 2 more, now down to his last stern tubes, Cutter closed to 2,250 yards and fired. Both torpedoes struck home, and the Ikoma Maru came apart in a ball of fire. 20 minutes later, the Yasukuni Maru slipped under stern first. For the next week, Seahorse prowled the approaches to Palau. Patrol boats crisscrossed overhead. Aircraft droned past, but nothing worth torpedoes appeared. On January 27th, Cutter stalked his ship, leaving Malakal Passage, only to break off when he spotted the red crosses of a hospital ship. The next day, 3 patrol vessels swept within 1,500 yards, their sonar pinging directly off Seahorse's hull. The leader held his boat steady. Engines stopped. The crew froze at their stations. The Japanese passed by, hunting for a submarine that wouldn't move. Then, on January 30th, McGreevy suddenly spotted smoke on the horizon. A convoy sliding out of Malakal Passage. And this time, Cutter wouldn't let go, no matter what. Through Seahorse's periscope, then radar, the smoke became 3 loaded transports, wrapped tight in a ring of escorts. Overhead, Japanese patrol bombers circled, never leaving, never attacking, just watching. Seahorse tried to break through 6 times that first night, but each time the escort shifted, like they could read Cutter's mind, slicing across the attack lane just as his finger touched the firing button. The convoy knew they were being stalked. The skipper worked ahead, submerged at dawn to study their pattern. Through the periscope, he watched the Japanese bomber return, taking up its endless circle. Every time Seahorse's scope broke the surface, sonar pings swept in, driving them back down. The hours stretched into days. The crew's eyes burned from lack of sleep, while Cutter refused to change out of the same sweat-soaked shirt. He kept Seahorse close enough to hear the convoy's screws churning overhead, but never so close that the escorts could get a solid fix. The men ate cold sandwiches at their stations, nobody leaving their post. Then, on the night of January 31st, after 43 hours of cat and mouse, the convoy finally zigged wrong. The escort screen split for 30 seconds, and Seahorse shot through the gap. Torpedoes leapt from the bow tubes at 2,600 yards, 2 of them ripping into the transport Tokumaru's guts. Fire climbed her sides as she broke in half. The convoy didn't scatter. Instead, they reversed course, dragging Seahorse into a chase that stretched through the final hours of January and bled into February. By then, the radar had given out, and everyone on board was almost hallucinating from exhaustion. Still, Cutter pressed on. His crew had never seen anyone refuse to quit like this. In the early hours of the first day of February, the submarine closed to just 1,000 yards and fired her last 2 stern torpedoes. Both slammed into the troop transport Toei Maru. Her ammunition detonated in a chain reaction that lit up the ocean for miles. After 82 hours of relentless pursuit, Cutter finally let go. 4 nights and 3 days without sleep. The crew could barely stand, but they'd done it. Sunk 2 transports while the entire Japanese Navy tried to stop them. When Seahorse returned to Pearl Harbor on February 16, 1944, Admiral Lockwood was once again standing on the dock, grinning like he'd won the lottery. The submarine he'd gambled on had just pulled off one of the most aggressive patrols in naval history. The crew that had once thought Cutter was insane now understood perfectly. This wasn't madness. Cutter's boldness was exactly what America needed to win the Pacific War. Seahorse and her now emboldened men departed Pearl Harbor on March 16, 1944, sailing with USS Harder toward the Mariana Islands. Cutter's target area was the shipping lanes around Saipan, where Japanese convoys staged for runs to the Caroline Islands and New Guinea. April 8 brought Cutter's most spectacular attack yet. West of Guam, Seahorse tracked a 3-ship convoy through the night. At dawn, Cutter took his submarine deep and slipped between 2 destroyers, echo ranging just 900 and 1,800 yards away. With the escorts behind him, perfect positioning came as the convoy zigged. 3 torpedoes shrieked toward the lead ship from 1,200 yards, and Cutter immediately swung to fire 3 more at the second transport. The munition ship Aratama Maru took 3 hits and exploded with such violence that only smoke remained where the ship had been. The second transport burst into flames. 28 depth charges rained down as Seahorse went deep, but Cutter had split the convoy wide open. When Seahorse surfaced, Aratama Maru was still burning, violent secondary explosions ripping through her hull. The ship would beach herself on Guam and explode the next day. The following afternoon brought an even larger target, a massive convoy with 20 transports and heavy escort. Aircraft circled overhead constantly. 6 torpedoes left Seahorse's tubes aimed at a transport, but an erratic torpedo circled back, passing dangerously close to Seahorse multiple times before running off. The last 2 torpedoes found their mark, and Mimasaka Maru began settling by the stern. For 12 hours, Japanese destroyers and aircraft tried to pin Seahorse down. Cutter would surface to charge batteries, only to dive minutes later as radar picked up approaching planes. By dawn, wreckage from Mimasaka Maru littered the surface. The Marianas were now fully alerted. Convoys hugged the coast, aircraft patrolled constantly, and destroyers ran search patterns day and night. On April 20th, Cutter spotted a Japanese submarine on the surface. 2 torpedoes fired. A loud explosion followed, and oil slicks appeared later, though the sinking couldn't be confirmed. A week later, west of Saipan, another convoy appeared. An escort gained sonar contact and charged in, forcing quick action. 4 stern torpedoes streaked toward the largest transport. 3 hits, and the Akikawa Maru began settling by the stern as Seahorse went deep, depth charges exploding overhead. When Seahorse arrived in Brisbane on May 11, 1944, her 4th patrol had added 3 more confirmed ships to her tally, despite being in the most defended waters in the world. USS Seahorse departed Brisbane on June 3, 1944, heading for the Luzon Strait, where Japan's remaining naval strength still prowled. After topping off at Manus, she pushed north into enemy waters. On June 15th, east of Mindanao, smoke appeared on the horizon. What emerged through the lens made Cutter's blood run cold. The distinctive pagoda masts of Japanese battleships rising from the sea like ancient towers. Radar confirmed the nightmare. 6 massive warships, including the super battleships Yamato and Musashi, the largest warships ever built, accompanied by heavy cruisers and destroyers. Cutter drove Seahorse forward at maximum speed, chasing the greatest prize any submarine could dream of. But the main motors began sparking violently, speed dropping from 18 knots to 14, then lower. The massive warships pulled away into the darkness, while Cutter fought to send a contact report through heavy Japanese jamming. By dawn, the pride of the Imperial Japanese Navy had disappeared over the horizon. A week later, Seahorse joined Wolfpack operations with USS Bang and USS Growler. On June 27th, south of Formosa, Cutter found a 10-ship convoy heading north from Manila, tracking 5 merchants and 5 escorts, zigzagging wildly through the darkness. Cutter attacked from periscope depth, firing 2 torpedoes at a transport, then swinging to fire 4 more at a massive tanker just 950 yards away. The sea erupted in flame. 5 hits in rapid succession. The tanker Medan Maru became an instant inferno, while 2 transports began listing heavily. Aircraft arrived before Seahorse could finish them off, but at least 1 more transport slipped under, while Seahorse cleared the area. The night of July 3rd brought the skipper's most aggressive attack yet. While floating southeast of Hong Kong, he tracked a convoy through bright moonlight, the ship silhouetted perfectly against the silver water. Despite radar problems and aggressive escorts, he dove and bored in. at point-blank range, just 595 yards, Cutter fired 2 stern tubes into a large transport. The explosions were so close, they rattled Seahorse's hull plates. Without pausing, he swung the submarine and fired 6 bow tubes at another transport. 3 more hits. The escorts charged in with depth charges that hammered Seahorse for hours, but Cutter held steady and slipped away. When he returned to periscope depth, one transport had vanished completely, while another burned and sank. 3 more ships added to the tally: Yoyu Maru, Nito Maru, and Kyoto Maru No. 28. When Seahorse arrived at Pearl Harbor on July 19, 1944, she'd completed her 5th and final patrol under Slade Cutter's command. After 5 war patrols, USS Seahorse had become one of the deadliest submarines in the Pacific Fleet. Her captain, Slade Cutter, had sunk 19 confirmed ships and transformed a crew that once thought him mad into believers in aggressive submarine warfare. His confidence grew with each sinking, until Japanese anti-submarine forces seemed like minor annoyances. But that confidence was becoming dangerous. Back at Pearl Harbor, Captain Babe Brown studied Cutter's patrol reports with growing concern. To him, the same aggression that made the skipper so successful was pushing him toward recklessness. With this, Brown made a decision that likely saved Cutter's life. He sent him home on leave, telling him a more senior officer would take Seahorse for one patrol. When the leader arrived home, orders waited to reassign him to new construction. He would never command Seahorse again. Years later, he would understand what Brown had done. Quote, "Had I gone on the 5th patrol as a skipper, I might not have come back." Babe Brown was an insightful man. In August 1944, Captain Charles Wilkins took command of Seahorse. Where Cutter had been fire and aggression, Wilkins brought steady calculation. Still aggressive enough to attack, wise enough to survive. The patrol started quietly, too quietly for a crew accustomed to Cutter's constant hunting. When Lookout spotted a periscope at 1,500 yards, Wilkins took evasive action, but didn't pursue. Cutter's Seahorse would have turned hunter immediately. Off Formosa, when patrol craft appeared with active sonar, Wilkins slipped away rather than risk detection. The crew understood the logic, but felt the difference. October 6th brought Seahorse's moment. After USS Whale torpedoed the tanker Akane Maru, Seahorse found a Japanese frigate picking up survivors. Wilkins crept closer for 2 hours, using the frigate's own sonar pings as a beacon. From just 680 yards, 6 torpedoes streaked out. The Kaibakan 21 broke in half, depth charges detonating as both sections sank. When Seahorse reached Pearl Harbor on November 1st, 1944, her 6th patrol had produced just 1 sinking. Respectable, but modest compared to Cutter's glory days. Lieutenant Commander Harry Greer took command of Seahorse's 7th Patrol on March 9th, 1945. The East China Sea had become a hunting ground where desperate Japanese anti-submarine forces prowled with newfound intensity. By early April in the Tsushima Strait, sonar pings grew steadily louder. 2 escorts bore down with nowhere to run. Greer bottomed his boat at 470 feet, destroyers passing directly overhead, their sonar pinging off the hull. On April 18th, Japanese frigates caught Seahorse on the surface at dawn. 9 depth charges drove her down to 470 feet, systems failing throughout. For 14 hours, over 50 depth charges rained down, while the crew worked frantically on repairs. When Seahorse finally surfaced that night, she was crippled. The submarine that had once terrorized Japanese shipping limped toward Guam for 3 months of repairs. After a final patrol on lifeguard duty, when she arrived at San Francisco on September 4th, 1945, Seahorse had completed 8 war patrols and sunk 21 confirmed enemy vessels, totaling over 80,000 tons, equivalent to an entire enemy fleet. Under Slade Cutter's command alone, 19 ships went to the bottom, making him one of the top submarine aces of World War II. The transformation was remarkable. A submarine that accomplished nothing on her first patrol became one of the Pacific Fleet's most feared hunters. But the cost of that success was measured in more than enemy tonnage. Seahorse had survived over 200 depth charges, multiple bombing attacks from both enemy and friendly aircraft, and mechanical failures that should have ended her career. As for Cutter, he went on to command USS Requin, adding 2 more ships to his tally before the war ended. The football coach who transformed Seahorse into a champion lived to tell the story, something Babe Brown had made sure of.